Funding for Colores was provided in part by Frederick Hammersley Foundation. This time on Colores, Corrales, New Mexico's Renaissance man Juan Wingard doesn't stick to one artistic medium.
I don't think I have an option about creating things or not. At this point, it's something I have to do.
Armorer Christopher Poor takes us inside his shop, where he handcrafts old-world replicas using the original methods.
It's a lot easier when you've got a 16th century original to look at.
20th century painter Anders Zorn's legacy was nearly forgotten until a recent exhibit in Boston.
I would describe him as one of the most important precursors of modern art.
Environmental photojournalist Carlton Ward showcases Florida's unique ecosystem.
From my academic studies to kind of what I do now, it's that partnership between science and art that is kind of where I try to exist.
It's all ahead on Colores. Juan Wingard transitions between mediums and techniques as he follows his dream to be a painter.
I'm working on a gessoed panel, and I'm using a silver point, which is basically a piece of silver wire stuck in in this case, an old paintbrush handle. This is the underdrawing. This will eventually be a neck tempera painting. I will be mixing these different pigments here with egg yolk. When it dries, it's impermeable, and as we know from old paintings, that it will stay like that for centuries. It's one of the oldest painting mediums we know will survive. I never considered art as a career. It was also discouraged by my parents. So I followed their advice and I got an office job. There were many periods of time at the office where there was nothing to do, basically. And I would bring a sketchbook and I would draw. And then people would come by and say, "Oh, that's really good." And so that was the only kind of acknowledgement I was getting. You know, it was the guy who's drawing. My office job was in London. One day I visited the Tate Gallery. I went into a room which was full of Pre-Raphaelite paintings, which I'd never seen before. And I didn't even know who they were. And I just stood there with my mouth open. And, wow, you know, this is what I would like to do with my life. And at that point, I decided to enroll myself in an art school. They told me I was not an artist as far as being a painter. I was a graphic designer. I then enrolled in a course in graphic design, also to find out this is not for me. But through that, I found out I really liked the world of illustration. And I was a children's book illustrator for over 30 years. There's a lot of medieval references, and the publishers weren't slow to catch on that this is what he likes to do. Let's feed him more manuscripts in this vein, you know. I did different periods in different places, Persian and Chinese, and mostly costume things. Lots of reference material that I had to plow through to get everything right. There's so many things I want to try, and so many things I get excited about. really there isn't enough time to do it all. Eventually, as things started to change, as far as my style becoming more old-fashioned, you know, after that period of time, and I decided, you know, I'm going to do the thing I always wanted to do, and that was painting. On my first trip to New Mexico, didn't know anything about retablos. I felt uncomfortable because it's not my tradition, you know. And since I knew Santeros, I knew that they were serious about what they do, and I didn't want to step on their domain. But I liked doing it anyway, you know. So I thought, if I'm going to do this, I have to honor my own background and roots, and not try and usurp somebody else's. This is one of the last pieces I did in this style. It's transitioning from the more New Mexican style to a more Northern European style. The colors have changed. This is more like a delft blue. The inscription though is in Spanish. It says "No valió la pena," which means it wasn't worth it, and it's referring to the apple at the bottom here, which has a couple of bites sticking out of it, and there's a worm coming out of the apple. So it wasn't a good apple. It's the story of Adam and Eve. The praying mantis started off as a wood engraving. I just wanted to do a praying mantis. I have a kind of connection with that particular insect. I feel that it's one of the few insects that you can actually look at, and it seems to acknowledge your presence, and you can relate to it, and it relates to you. And the Latin name for the praying mantis is Mantis religiosa, which is the religious mantis. So I'll put the sun behind its head with the rays coming out, and a presto, that's a halo. And I thought, well, this would make a great retablo, an icon. I don't think I use a particular quality of light. It's kind of like I want to try this and I want to try that. It's the same thing, you know. I like this one, but on certain days I like that one, and certain days I go outside and it's overcast, and I think, oh my God, this is so beautiful, you know. And then you go out and it's sunny, and you know, and you get the same reaction. They're all different, and they're all wonderful in their own ways. I don't necessarily think, you know, I want to make somebody else feel the same thing. It's more selfish than that, you know. I want to be in that moment again. My habit of wanting to do so many things is something that sometimes gets in the way. And I'm saying that, and I'm more trying to make a living at this. You know, like they say, you can make a living or make a life, you know. Hopefully they all look like something I did, but they're not, they're all different. I don't think I have an option about creating things or not. At this point, it's something I have to do. Once you decide I'm not going to live in the corporate world, and you know, once you make the commitment, everything is easy. Things just keep coming. Inspiration is everywhere. Once you learn how to look, it just hits you in the face all the time.
Artisan Christopher Poor creates arms and armor that you would have seen 1,000 years ago.
When I was 6, I got a full suit of Japanese armor for my birthday, which was pretty amazing, actually. You know, you're 6 years old and you open that package and there's a 17th century suit of armor that you get to run around in like a little maniac. A lot of kids play with cardboard shields and wooden swords. I just never stopped. I'm Chris Poor, and I'm an armorer. Arms and Armor is a business I started in about 1980, and what it has become is a place where you can get the most accurate historical copy of just about any piece of arms and armor in the last 1,000 years. Early on, we made contacts with several museums in Europe. We did things with the Wallace Collection, which is a museum in London. We actually were doing some things a little bit for Royal Armories. In this country, we've done everything from the title weapons for Ernest Scared Stupid, right on through to the latest Cate Blanchett Elizabeth movie, where we did all the high-end rapiers. We've got stuff on display in the Chicago Art Institute. We do work here in Minneapolis with the Art Institute, where we come in with original pieces and show replicas. The Globe Theatre in London. So you can travel the world and you will spot our things. This is an elbow. This will go right here. And when you close your arm, that's about the movement you get. And these fins will close the gap. When it's extended, you still have protection. We try to replicate the original techniques as much as possible. A lot of the tools that existed 500 years ago today exist in miniature. The only people that use a lot of those tools anymore would be silversmiths. So the hammers weigh 4 ounces or 5 ounces. I need the 3-pound version. You've seen quite a few tools. I would say 80% of those we've made. That's partially why we get such good results, because we're trying to stay faithful to their techniques. Now you have the whole unit, which you can move this way, you can pivot that way. The whole thing will sit right there. We try to capture the essence, the spirit, and the feel of the original. And partially it's made easier for us because we have a lot of originals. It's a lot easier when you've got a 16th century original to look at. And as you can see, there's a lot of similarities. The difference being I made this last week and somebody made this in about 1570. Wherever possible, we will handle the original. For example, if we're going to put a new sword in our catalog, if possible, I'll go to the museum where that sword is. What I want to be able to do is take the original and take ours and set them down side by side and not really be able to tell the difference. This is a suit of armor we're building for a private individual. It's based on a German one from about 1510. If you add up every little element, yeah, there's probably close to 100 pieces of metal in an armor like this. This is definitely an artistic endeavor. It's really free-form sculpture. When you're doing a suit of armor, really what are you doing but creating a hollow, life-size sculpture in more or less the form of a human being. We start out with flat pieces of steel, and we hammer it out and shape it and fit it and polish it and do all the work. What we're working on here is a custom sword hilt. We have a picture. We go from that picture to figuring out the shape. We take bars of steel like this, and with many, many hours filing, hammering, welding, we turn these into something like this. And we're matching it exactly to a historical original. And when we put a grip, which is the handle you'd actually hang on to, you've got a finished sword.
It takes about as much time to think about the project as it does to actually do it. I'd say in a nutshell, that's the process.
Okay, now we're going to heat treat the head. We're going to place it on the fire, get it hot, and then use the process of quenching the steel to create a piece that is going to be hard, durable, and springy.
By Viking age, in 700, a sword is supposed to be able to bend into an arc and snap back. So by the 7th century, people have figured out how to heat treat steel effectively so that you'll get a spring instead of a paper clip.
Looks pretty good. You can tell when your heat treat's relatively successful because you'll get this shiny gray, or kind of a flat gray, I guess, but the scale comes right off. That means it's gone hard.
Part of why I'm doing this is because I was well enough educated to find out what it was all about and appreciate it. We don't just teach the history of swords and the history of armor. That's pretty limited. What we try to do is teach history using these as hooks, as props. And if we can bring them into a wider world through this portal, through this entry point of loving swords or armor, well, that's a great thing.
19th century Swedish superstar painter Anders Zorn is rediscovered.
With his bathers, the water ripples and shimmers. The women are luminescent. In his portraits, the fabrics are pools of light. The faces, the eyes, lure you in, and it's tough to step away. In a word, says curator Oliver Tostman, Anders Zorn is seductive.
It's a very sensuous style. I mean, the colors are deep. You can see the brush strokes. It's just, there's a certain physicality about it, which is just there. Then, if you look at the society portraits, he always slightly embellishes his sitters. He wants to render them as attractive as possible.
There was a moment, roughly the span of the 1890s, when Swedish painter Anders Zorn held the art world in his palm. Highly collected and commissioned, he was an international superstar, says Tostman, curator of the first Zorn show in this country in almost 30 years. On view at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, the show, like the artist himself, is a revelation.
I had barely any idea about Anders Zorn, and when I looked closer at the collection, I was just stunned about the variety of his works, but also the quality.
A superstar who faded into obscurity, Zorn began as a painter as adept at commerce as he was with the canvas, marketing himself to patrons, seduced by his style.
I would describe him as one of the most important precursors of modern art. He somehow prepared the grounds for that.
His work captured the attention of Isabella Stewart Gardner at the Chicago World's Fair in 1893. She collected and befriended Zorn, and the two would develop an enduring friendship, as evidenced by the surviving letters he wrote her.
It was very joyful, very witty. He tries to stimulate her intellectually. He tells her about his life, which was peripatetic. He tells her about his art projects. He sends her little presents.
His most lasting gift is perhaps this portrait of Mrs. Gardner, which she cherished with prominent placement in her homes.
He has this unique talent to connect with the sitters and to get something of their personality. If you look at our portrait of Isabella Stewart Gardner, it's just fascinating. I mean, she was a 54-year-old woman at that point, and he somehow renders her totally ageless.
By Zorn's own admission, this painting of an ice skater, unusual in that she's depicted at night, was among his dearest.
She appears unstable, and there is something with these long shadows casted on the eyes, something nearby haunting.
As lasting as Zorn's work would be, he faded with history, a slow disappearance that began when he removed himself from Europe's thriving art circles toward the end of his life.
Paris and his patrons there, his friends, fellow artists there had a huge impact on him. And they forced him to try out things, to experiment, to push himself. When he moved from Paris, he became a little bit more complacent, if you want to say, a little bit repetitive.
But history also repeats, and with the Gardner Show, Zorn is reborn.
Floridian and environmental photojournalist Carlton Ward seeks to protect the natural habitat he loves.
I've been photographing professionally for 15 years now. And from the beginning, my interest in photography was always connected to conservation issues, to natural environments and to cultural legacies. From my academic studies to kind of what I do now, it's that partnership between science and art that is kind of where I try to exist. The Tampa Bay History Center is a special institution to me. The curators here are not just keyed in on history from the past, but also living history.
We are a place where you can learn and engage in the history and culture of the Tampa Bay area from 12,000 years ago when people first arrived here all the way up to the present. We also have a temporary exhibit gallery where we are able to offer all kinds of different exhibits, including the Florida Wildlife Corridor Expedition exhibit, which is on display right now.
We started the expedition on January 17th, 2012 in Flamingo, in the far southern part of Everglades National Park. It was actually really a relief to put the kayaks in the water and take that first paddle stroke, because it had been nearly 2 years of intensive planning to get to that point. The Florida Wildlife Corridor Expedition team consisted of myself, functioning as a photographer. Joe Guthrie is a bear biologist whose research on black bears in Central Florida was part of the inspiration for the Florida Wildlife Corridor Expedition. Mallory Likes Dimmitt is a lifelong friend and fellow conservationist who is directing the Colorado Plateau Initiative for the Nature Conservancy. Elam Stoltzfus is a well-known PBS filmmaker. By having a filmmaker embedded in our team, it's helping us take our messages to much wider audiences than we would be able to reach just by doing photography and writing alone. The idea of a wildlife corridor is to protect linkages between existing sections of protected natural habitat. So in Florida we have places like Everglades National Park and Ocala National Forest, big nationally significant protected areas. But if we don't protect the green spaces in between, those areas become islands separated from one another, and wide-ranging species like bears and panthers can't have the collective habitat they need to survive. From the mangrove coast and moving up into the sawgrass was one of the highlights of the expedition, because there was a point when we kind of transitioned away from the wilderness waterway and went backcountry through the sawgrass of the Shark River Slough. We didn't see a person for 3 days, and we were just out there in this vast sea of grass that, you know, it's a wilderness unlike any other in the world. From a photographer's standpoint, in order to bring a composition of a landscape together, I find that the clouds are really important. The clouds, as they move through, kind of provide that ephemeral moment that helps add that slice of life to the picture. One of my favorite photographs captured during the expedition is of an Ogeechee tupelo tree. That particular photograph is very evenly lit because it's raining. I put the camera on a tripod and it was about a 10-second exposure. So the water is actually flowing by like a sheet, so it disguises the raindrops. You don't really see them striking the surface of the water. I love photographing pine forest because you have so much texture and so much repetition and depth to the scene. So when we got to Ocala National Forest, I really had that kind of landscape view in mind. The wiregrass was in full spring bloom, which gives it this really soft, almost white coloration and texture. A lot of the wildlife images you see in the exhibit, they were captured on camera traps. So this is an infrared tripwire that I set up across a game trail. And then as the animal walks through and breaks that beam, it takes its own picture. When we hiked through the Fakahatchee Strand, I got introduced to the ghost orchid for the first time. The ghost orchid itself is such a fragile flower that it hangs from the edge of the tree by this very thin stem that's like a long spring. And the slightest bit of wind movement or even the wing beat of a mosquito can send it dancing. They probably call it ghost orchids for other reasons, but to me the thing was so elusive and ephemeral, to try to photograph it, it kind of lived up to its name. I'm approaching what are already very beautiful subjects, and I don't know if I'm necessarily creating anything there. I'm just really doing my best to capture the essence of that animal or that place or that person where its already existent beauty comes through.
Carlton's photography is really amazing, and he's able to capture really the natural look of Florida, the colors that really say Florida, the animals. the environment itself. You see the treacherous nature of Florida, whether it's a snake or an alligator, plus the amazing diversity of the fauna. He really captures that like few others have.
To the extent that we can help expand and contribute to Florida's sense of identity to include the bears and the cattle ranches and the vast connected watersheds like the Everglades and the St. Johns River, if we don't do a good job of protecting that green infrastructure, it's not just going to be bad for the wildlife, it's going to be bad for everyone who's trying to live here.
Next time on Colores, Nora Naranjo Morse shares how growing up in New Mexico's Santa Clara Pueblo influenced her work.
To make something, to create something was a very essential part of feeling good.
Artist Kate Casanova pushes the boundaries where nature becomes the subject and the human world becomes the landscape.
I'm drawn to aspects of nature that are sometimes unnerving or underappreciated.
Sculptor James DeRosso creates monsters.
I think with my monsters, I kind of wanted to give kids the permission to realize that a monster could be the playful, sort of curious monster, or the one that's scared, and not the monster that wants to eat your foot or your hand.
Dominique Martinez developed a successful sculpture company that turns junk into art.
I have achieved true success in the means that doing what you love, that's success.
Until next time, thank you for watching.